We have one producer. Do we have another one? We need both. And Lewis over there will give you the sign to get started.
All right. Sounds
And
good.
as soon as we get...
Is it going to be a high sign or a low sign or a medium sign?
He has a unique sign he gives to me, but he probably won't give it to you. Be more polite. So they're ready? We're ready, huh? All right. Yeah, go ahead and start. And remember, you're live, so talking to the camera.
All right.
All right, everyone, we've got special treats here.
Hey, hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Jackson. This is the Cloud Computing Deployment Power Panel. I am the CEO and founder of GovCloud Network. And I'm joined here on a panel where we're going to talk about real live challenges when deploying the cloud. Before we start, I'd like to have the panel members introduce themselves. First, Joe Peterson.
Hi guys, I'm Joe Peterson. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Services for Clarify 360.
And Scott.
Hi, my name is Scott Gessling. I'm the COO and CTO of a company called Burstorm, where we do visualized drag-drop automated modeling for hybrid cloud infrastructure.
Great. Now, this is being streamed live, so we have a live audience. We social power panel. Note 2 A's and 2 L's. Social power panel. And at the end of this power panel, we will pick a random tweet to win a copy of Architecting Cloud Computing Solutions. In fact, we're going to pick 3 random tweets at the end of this panel. So make sure, hashtag social power panel.
And nobody associated with the show may win the books.
And this includes you people out there looking at the stream. So, how we're going to run this is we really want to talk about the real issues when it comes to deploying cloud solutions and architecting cloud solutions. To do that, we're going to provide our candid views on the issues that organizations are running into as they go into the cloud. We're going to do this via a series of questions. So to get you guys started off, the first question is, what does cloud transformation really mean? Now, I've talked to my colleagues up here about it, and they have their own ideas. But before we hear from them, I want someone out there here in the audience to tell me, what does cloud transformation really mean? Raise your hand, and there's a gentleman here with a microphone. We'll come right to you.
Make this live, and someone.
Come on, raise your hand. Someone.
Right over
there. It
There
is. What transformation really mean?
Well, thanks for asking, and thanks for having me here today. I'm happy to be with all of you. Let's take a step back and look at digital transformation, right? How many of you guys have heard that very overused phrase, digital transformation, right? What does that really mean, right? So it means that you've taken some applications and you've digitized them. But does that mean you're really digitally transformed? Maybe, maybe not. Because has it changed your business? Has it changed the way you do business? Maybe, maybe not. Same thing happens with cloud transformation. Just because you move an application to the cloud doesn't mean that you've transformed. Cloud transformation really happens when everybody gets in the boat and you guys all as an organization decide that by going to the cloud, it's going to have an economic benefit for the organization. Because cloud is not a technology so much, it's an economic model, right? And I'm going to borrow from my friend Scott here. It's an economic model, it is, and he's going to tell you some more in a minute. But what outcome have you gotten? So let me give you guys an example. I have a very large customer that does clinical trials, and their client is pharmaceutical firms. They are collecting data points literally in 80 countries in the world for these pharmaceutical firms, right? They did a study, it took them about a year to run it, and they realized that by going to the cloud, which means collecting the data faster than having it housed in these disparate data banks, having a centralized point, they could crunch the numbers 34% faster. Well, okay, that's nice in some sort of normative fashion, right? What that means is they can get revenue 34% faster because they can deliver their report to the pharmaceutical company and get revenue faster. And it doesn't matter. I have a waste hauler that has used the cloud to collect data faster as well, and they're able to monetize faster because of cloud. So that's the power of cloud.
So it sounds like you're saying cloud transformation really has to result in something.
Yep.
You're talking about more money for the organization. Scott?
Sure. It is largely economic and an economic model. But if we look at the word transformation in itself, transformation is not only change. It has to be a majority has changed to be transformed. If it's anything short of that, it's just change, right? So by the definition of the word transformation, many things have to change. It is technology, it is economic model, but it's also how things are operated. For example, if I throw something out in the cloud, as mentioned earlier, if I operate it the same way I had it at home, that's likely not going to bode well at the end. So transformation is not only from economics and technology, but also potentially strategy, as well as how I operate, how I monitor. It is really a majority of the things that I do really need to be thought out in a different way because I'm doing things differently. Cloud in itself is largely an economic change, but that affects strategy, that also affects technology. So as I get into this, I'll find that many things need to change for me to be successful in that transformation. That does not mean that I need to be paralyzed by all of the things that are going on, right? You can move into this as fast as you need to, but ultimately remember that I'm trying to not do what I was doing, right? It has to be different. I have to transform.
So let me think about that, because I always thought cloud computing was about technology, but you guys are telling me that it's really not just technology. It's about the way you do things. It's about changing your revenue, the way you operate. And Scott, you said it actually has to affect a majority of your organization. I've never, that's different. That's different than many people have been saying about cloud. So in the audience, cloud's supposed to be easy. So why is it so taxing professionally and mentally and emotional? How many of you out there or your organizations have actually tried to transform and go into the cloud? Has it been hard? Oh, it's all easy? Or you've never decided to do this? All right, so Scott, have you heard this, that cloud is supposed to be easy?
Yeah, you just go to the console and spin up an image.
Press a button. It's easy, it's cheaper,
It costs me
it's
$2
fast.
a month and I'm in the cloud. Absolutely.
Nice.
Not so much. But the reason that the transformation is so hard, virtualization has been around since the late 50s, 60s, right? Virtualization is not cloud. Virtualization has been around for a long time. The reason it became cloud was because the economic models shift. We're now able to consume a resource in a fraction of a minute and be billed for a fraction of that minute for a fraction of a resource whenever it's meant to be consumed. So it's a completely different economic model. What I can do with hundreds of servers in an hour is very different than what I can do with one server for hundreds of hours. It's a very different economic model. So the reason it's supposed to be easy is because I can go to the console and spin up the image and I can load the application and I'm in the cloud. But in reality, I also need others in the organization, governance. I need orchestration to do it. I need budget approvals. I need people to buy off. I need stakeholders. There's a lot more to it than just spinning up an instance.
So is it really that hard, Joe?
I think what it comes down to is myth versus reality. right?
Okay.
Preconceived notions. So, I'm going to read you a fact, Kevin. Gartner predicts that cloud computing market will reach $411 billion by 2020.
Wow, it's a lot of money.
Billion, that's a lot of money. Anytime you see a technology sweep through from a macro level, people have all kinds of conceptions of and misconceptions about what it can do and what it can't do. And that's what we're really talking about, right? We're talking about people are afraid of loss of control. People think that cloud will kill their on-premise infrastructure. It's going to make them more, likely to get external threats, more sensitive. It's more expensive. There's all these ideas about the cloud, and that can be said because it's such a sweeping change.
It's not hard, though.
It's not hard.
It's not hard, meaning
Okay.
that if you get people on board and they start thinking and collaborating and speaking the same language, things can actually move quite well. People need to be at the table, the same table, speaking the same language with the same goals, and things move much, much quicker. The problem, I think, why it's not so easy and so taxing is because those people are not at the same table and they're not speaking the same language. Technically, it's not hard. I mean, there are some challenges, but it's more of a cultural change that's so hard.
Oh, so that's something different. So you're saying that it's taxing because it's a cultural change, not because of the technology.
Correct.
You also said that it's because people don't speak the same language. But you're not talking like English versus Spanish versus Chinese, right?
Correct.
Okay, so this is something new. This makes it more than what many have said about, and this is one of the other questions that has come up. Many say that cloud transformations require a change in organizational mindset. Can you explain that? I mean, you're talking about culture, you're talking about language, even when everyone speaks the same language. You say that with technology it's easy. I'm getting confused here. Joe.
Oh, you're looking at me? Okay.
Help me out, please.
Okay. So, earlier I said that everybody has to be in the boat. And what I mean by that is that we go to all kinds of different clients. We're blessed to see all kinds of different industries in my practice. And that gives us visibility into the fact that the organizations that succeed are the ones that have a C-level executive really pushing the mission forward, that believes in it, right? That believes that cloud is going to help transform their business in some way. Maybe it's getting a product to market faster. They see outside of the technology about the advantages to the business. If that isn't happening and people are working in silos, then it can get daunting.
So hold it. So Scott, you wrote this book. Is all this in this book?
Yeah, a lot of it's in that book. Shameless plug. A lot of it's in the book. When you look at transformation and organizations, this is not an organizational behavior exercise. That's not what this is about. But how many people enjoy the conversation with the CFO?
Yeah, nobody, right?
No?
None of you guys?
It hurts.
She likes
A
it
little.
right there.
Oh,
Yeah, it hurts a little. It's uncomfortable. A lot of these conversations become strategic and they become financial. It's not really about the technology as much as it is understanding how is this going to affect the business in business terms. And that's where the language barrier came in. It's talking strategy. I can engineer the greatest technical solution, but if it's financially in the complete wrong direction, that's not necessarily going to be a successful solution. Or if I engineer something that's really aligned with strategy and it's really in line with it technology-wise, but financially, forget it, right? I have to balance those things. And then I have to start thinking about risk, and I have to think about what if I move these pieces, what happens? Those conversations sometimes are a little uncomfortable, particularly if you don't have all those people at the table. So you've got to make sure that everyone is speaking the same language, everybody's talking about terms of where the benefits are to business, where they are technology-wise, where they are financially, what's the risk profiles. The engineers of the future are going to be a bit different than the engineers of today. Today, here's a mindset thing. Today, we engineer for the high point. I have to go buy enough infrastructure where I get enough in there. When the Hallmark holiday hits and Hallmark's got to serve all the cards, they can't crash, right? But earlier today, for example, Lithicum was up here talking about serverless. These days, you only have to engineer for the low point, not the high point, and you can move methodically into higher points, but that takes a level of awareness and governance and control that's not necessarily there today. It's a mindset change of saying, I need to think of the risks and the benefits to the business and the strategies of deploying these technologies this way so that I can follow along with what's going on in the business. That's where that realignment and the languages come back together.
I'm going to look at the audience here. Is this hitting a chord for you? Has anyone seen this before in their activities with the cloud? Does anyone have any real burning questions about how the organizational mindset has to change? Here's a question over here.
Oh, okay. Excuse me,
While
sorry.
he's walking.
Okay.
While we're transitioning over to big room, the organizational mindset change also requires data. If there's no data, if I'm thinking a certain way and I don't have any data that shifts my thinking, I'm going to continue thinking the same way. So it requires a level of data to open the mind so that you can change some of these mindsets. Go ahead, sorry.
Sure, my question on the organizational side of this is, we heard at the speaker at lunch that there is a lack of supply of talent to keep up with the demand for the cloud right now. But
Yeah.
we're also hearing a lot more about automation and organizational changes culturally within organizations. I wanted to ask where you all think, I guess, the largest demand for the workforce would be as the cloud continues to change.
Oh, gosh, I would tell you, run and get a certification.
You know, I want to agree with that, because one of the key issues in organizations that are trying to go into the cloud is a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Because many of your senior leaders think they know what cloud is, or cloud is just a technology thing that they don't need to worry about, that the IT people will take care of it. And it's just a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge, a lack of training. Is that true?
Yeah, to add on to that, there's some great published data out there. Not to tap anybody or pat anybody on the back, but Amazon has published data on Cloud Center of Excellence. You can look it up, and they talk about the organizational change and the phases that are required to get you over the line around cloud. And again, I'm sure Azure publishes something, Google publishes something as well. I'm just familiar with this piece of work. And I would tell you that cloud certified folks are hotly in demand.
I completely disagree.
Great. We have some disagreements.
That's okay. It's largely because they don't exist for the most part. I'll answer your question first, because it's one of my favorites and I want to give you a book. The problem with if you look at the statistics that came from labor, right? They're saying that the skilled jobs is where we're going to see most of the decline. It's not in the other unskilled. It's really in the skilled. So the challenge that most businesses are having, almost all of them, is that they're not able to find the skill sets that are helping them move forward at the pace of the market. The market is moving ridiculously fast. If you think about just this past summer, we were talking virtualization, then it went containers, then it went serverless, now it's going microkernel or unikernel already, when 95% of people haven't really truly adopted enough virtualization to even get that part done. And so when you think, well, gosh, if I would have made that decision just a few weeks ago, I would be really stuck right now because this new thing's coming. Maybe I should wait and see that. And then ultimately you don't get anything done, right? You get completely paralyzed. So when you look at the statistics, yes, they're seeing a shortage of the people that they need because the skill sets of aligning technology, economics, risk, and strategy are very, very hard to find. If you had to put a skill set that I would go look for first, only because roughly 90% of the software that's out there is not off the shelf, it's very custom, particularly when you get into large enterprise. If you're in the further down the stack you go, the more off the shelf that software gets. If I had to go pick a skill set that I had to look for right away, it would be a software developer that had a strategic mind. That would be the one that would be highly desirable for me, right? Multi-languages, they understand technology. That would be someone. When we talk about languages, the kids that are coming out of college, they understand techniques, they don't understand business. So you've got to coach them up a little bit. If you've got the runway to do that, great. But when you're talking about services that have a lifespan of fractions of a minute or fractions of a second, or if you're talking about services that by the time you get it rolled out, the technology platforms are already changing, you have to find a way to accelerate and keep up. It's not saying that it's insurmountable, but you have to, we call it shifting the curves. You have to shift the curves and get caught up and pick a spot and say, this is where I'm starting. And so those skilled positions are hard to get. Those kinds of mindsets. It's really more about mindset than it is an actual skill in our world. We've stopped hiring based on solely a skill set. We're looking for a mindset first.
So maybe it's more the mindset or the acceptance of change and the ability to deal with change as everything changes around you.
But Kevin, I would add something here.
Mm-hmm.
I think back in the day, I'm going to tell you how long I've been doing this, a long time. I started out getting Cisco certifications and being able to, work on machinery, right? It's not about working on machinery anymore. It's being able to manage vendors, because so much more of your business is going to be in the cloud or handled by a service provider. You have to be able to have business conversations with those people. So I agree with Scott about that, but I do think you have to understand the underlying premise of what you're dealing with. That's just my 2 pennies.
I think one thing is that as an IT professional, the whole concept of being an IT professional is really changing in the cloud world. You look at resumes in the past, and it was all about having as many certifications in as many technologies that would get you the job, because
I got
the
a raise
job
for each one of
recs,
those.
because the job recs always said, I want this cert or this technology or this capability. And as you go into the cloud, the technology is actually obfuscated from you. You don't know what technology is being used. So what value is having a cert in a particular technology if you can't even pick the technology?
There goes your Cisco sponsorship.
So another thing when you look at this, first of all, behavior follows compensation, always, right? There is never a moment that that's not true. Second thing is, if you're trying to figure out how to scale and you're trying to figure out how to shift the curves and you're trying to figure out how to catch up, the best thing you can do is figure out how to embrace the services that are already fully managed with a team of experts that has a deep bench 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that are there to help you, instead of trying to hire that person. You need them when you need them for as long as you need them, and that's the only time you need them. So you might as well embrace that model and go that route. The cost of a server is tanking. But in a hybrid multi-cloud world, the cost of managing that is skyrocketing. So to shift the curve, you've got to figure out how to move that out, and that could be through a combination of services, managed service partners, a combination of different vendors. Cloud is not defined by Amazon and Azure. Cloud is not, I parked my car in somebody else's garage, therefore I've outsourced my car. That's not how it works. Cloud is a different economic model that helps the business align to its technology, its economics, its strategy, and its risk profile. So that could be any of those services that allow you to shift those curves and realign those things. That does take an open mindset, that does take data, and it takes the right people who are willing to embrace that. If you're stuck in a legacy environment where people are trying to protect their kingdoms and fiefdoms, culturally that's going to be a hard thing to overcome. They believe that their world is surrounded by the servers they hug, right? I need to go in and I need to caress it. That's mine.
I'm
I've been
sorry.
there. It's okay. I live that way.
You're messing with me. You're messing with me. Because, you're telling me that as an IT professional, I love hugging my server. I love configuring this and installing that and tweaking this. And you're telling me that that doesn't matter anymore. And you're also saying that I need to be able to manage. Oh, God, I need a manager? I got to manage services? Oh, God, I don't know if I want this cloud thing. But, you also said another thing that sounds kind of weird, and I hear about this in the news all the time. You said data. What does data have to do with the cloud? I thought it was about getting, virtualized servers and getting storage and just having, your manager come in and say, go to Azure or go to AWS, because there aren't any other cloud service providers, right? What does data have to do with this?
Here's a piece of data. A server, let's say a server costs $10. What's the cost to manage that server? Does anybody have any idea? Anyone want to take a guess?
In the back. How much does it cost to manage a server?
Way in the back.
All right, way in the back.
Way in the back.
Hang on a second.
Yeah, so think about this. So the server has a cost, but that server has care and feeding, licensing, operations, monitoring, all the software, all the stuff on it.
About $2K.
About $2,000. For 200 times? Not far off, but a little high. Yes, sir.
I would say double the cost.
Double the cost of the server, so 2x. In our studies that we've done, if you do it really, really super well, it's about 8 times. If you're highly, highly automated to ridiculous levels, you might get it down to 4, maybe. I've seen as high as 50, 60, 70 times if you're an inefficient organization. So when you start looking at data and you start thinking about those things, that's the kind of data that opens the mindset that says, well, maybe we need to do this another way. Particularly if you're a server, you're into physical servers, you're into control, but maybe your skill set hasn't changed in years and years and you've had no time to update that skill set. You've not had training in a while and your compensation isn't really incentivizing you to keep doing what you're doing. These data points help you figure out how you want to transform not only yourself, but your mindset as well as the organization that you're working for.
I don't know. Joe, I know you got something to say here, and I want to hear it, but when I'm in an IT organization, the only data I care about is what's my budget for the year.
Which is going down year after year.
So what data do you think we need?
I think back to Scott's point, it's about the conversation that you're going to have. Again, nobody really wants to go have a conversation with the CFO, right? No. So if you do, you've got to be able to think about what language and what the conversation is going to entail that matters to him. Well, what matters to him? Spending money, yeah? So you know that you need a new SAN. You know that the new SAN is going to cost you $250,000. But you want to go to the cloud. You don't want to buy the SAN. Well, this is your perfect opportunity, kids. This is your opportunity to say to him or her, listen, we can delay buying that SAN maybe by a few years if we offload to archival storage or cloud storage, our cold data. You can make it meaningful for him from a budgetary perspective if you explain that he doesn't have to fork out that $250,000. That's data that's going to get him sitting up or her sitting up in their chair and saying, oh, okay, well, maybe I care about this cloud computing thing. Maybe.
Sounds like metrics to me.
If you can't measure it, why do it? True?
Never thought about it that way.
So, any people familiar with Shadow IT? Joe's got great stories around Shadow IT. But what's the reason for it? I argue that it's the solution, not the problem. What's the big deal about shadow IT? What's wrong? What do people perceive as wrong with it?
Sacrifices security and governance.
It sacrifices security, so it's out of control. It's uncontrolled spending, theoretically. So shadow IT in itself was the answer to, you're not responsive, I don't have the right budget, you're not enabling to do what I need to do, and I need to shift the economics so I can get more done, right? Those basic things. That was really what was going on. As a CIO, CTO, if you listen to that, okay, I need to operate differently. I need a different mindset. That's an interesting data point to me that, what'd you say, the 4 accounts and later on you found 768 accounts or something like that? There's some crazy number. CFO says I got 4 accounts and through looking at the console, well, there's actually 768 accounts because they could open a new account and get it underneath the credit card limit and buy the infrastructure.
So you're saying, what it sounds like to me is that you're saying that a good cloud transformation is really not about the technology. It's about being able to speak the right language. It's about understanding the metrics or value that you're delivering. And you're also saying that the governance may be messed up, that you may need to change your governance. This is a lot. My head is like.
Great solutions fail if nobody adopts them.
So how can an organization train and educate the managers, the senior stakeholders? Because they are coming down. They're saying, go to the cloud. They're not giving you any metrics. They're not telling you why. They just say, go to the cloud, and we just say how fast. So how can you train your seniors about cloud?
You first. So we were laughing a little bit earlier. We got together and we were talking about the language of love, right? Any of you guys heard about the language of love? Right? Okay, this gentleman's shaking his head. We all speak a different language. Somebody needs to hear that they're nice looking and somebody needs to have their hand held, and right? What language are you talking about to your bosses? Are you talking to them in bits and bytes? Because you know the CFO, he looks at you politely or she looks at you politely, but they've gone, to the vacation they're taking 2 weeks from now. That's where their mind is. Oh, I need to lay on that beach. Yeah. They're not listening to you. You just closed off. So you need to talk to them about how cloud is going to bring revenue to the company faster. You need to understand your business. That's going to get that executive's attention, right? How am I going to, we're from Southern California, we're both from California, and entertainment industry, they figured out really early that if they could use the cloud, they could get releases to the market way fast. So it changed their business model. It literally changed their business model. You've got to speak their language. What would you add?
I don't talk to my boss in love languages. Awkward. I love him to death. He's one of my favorite people, but no. Love you. Long time. But no. I think the thing that we're talking about is when you get into the data and you get into the different ways of having these conversations, you could say it's about revenue, but it really goes back to that alignment of back to the business and using technology and aligning the strategies. It's not that the technology submits to business, but all of these things have to be balanced.
Yeah.
So there are times when cloud is a very bad answer. It is a tool in the toolbox. It is not an answer for everything. It is not, Rainmaker. It is the right tool for the right job at the right time. Effectively communicated, it's a very powerful tool. If you're not communicating data, if you're not doing change management, if you're not managing it through governance, it will fail because it spins out of control pretty quickly. It's pretty easy to go get this stuff. And if it's done incorrectly, it creates bigger problems.
Maybe there's something in this book that Does anybody want to read this book? Does anybody want to win a book? So it's time. First of all, today, right after this event at the Broadway Suite at 5 o'clock, Scott and I will be having a breakout session more about this book. And we're going to give away some more books at our breakout session. But for this session, it's time. Make sure, have you tweeted, social, power panel? Because right now, I am going to pick a winner for the book.
While he's picking the winner, is there any questions from anybody in the audience that either on something we didn't address or something that's a burning question you came here to get answered?
He doesn't have the lottery number.
I have the mic and a question. This is semi-serious, there's a serious point in it. Have you thought about bringing a psychiatrist or psychologist with you when you try to get a company to transform? And the reason I say that, because I've been through one of these with a smallish company, and with a few crazy people in the C-suite, you got to get them with the program, and then you got to keep them on the program. They got to hold their nerve. And it does seem like, despite all the flaws in technology, that everyone's aware of, and that's why we have conferences, it's always the people that mess it up. And when you're trying to do a transformation, my impression is it's been the people at the top. And so how do you deal with that psychological aspect of getting people with the program, and then the really hard part, keeping them with the program? Or you just keep on trying?
Can I go?
Quickly, I have my first winner.
So the answer to that is through the data, right? It's change management, right? If you're not effectively communicating why we're doing this and what we're succeeding at and what we're doing, it all falls apart. So it's good change management.
So maybe I need a psychiatrist.
Well, I do have my own sessions, but that's a whole nother thing. But when you go in and talk to these, particularly C-levels, they're data-driven, they're analytics-driven, right? They're trying to make the most informed, low-risk decision they possibly can, day after day, week after week. They don't need wins on everything, but they do need wins. And when you go in and present the data, it really helps understand, well, this is what can happen if we do this. These are the metrics. We can, reduce operational costs. We can, drive more revenue. We can do this faster. We can get revenue earlier. All of those things, right? It's all data-driven. Absolutely.
And the first winner, according to Twitter Draw, is Laura Rippins. Laura Rippins.
Online?
Is that her? Oh, come on down. The first winner of the book. And if you want to get autographed by...
Oh, Neil. Oh, Neil.
And don't leave right after we finish. We only got a minute. We're going to do autographs right after the session. So bring your book back right after we finish.
Hey,
have autographs.
while he's pulling the next one, another response on the labor question. If you can't find the right skill sets and the right mindset, automate what you can. Because if there's automation that can be done, that's less people you have to hire and theoretically buys you a little more runway. That might be that you outsource some development for a project, which is far less than a fully loaded employee with benefits, if you can do that without compromising IP. But you're going to have to find ways to compensate until you can find the right skill set. I would not make a snap decision and just pick somebody just because you need them.
You won a book. Come on down. Scott said he's going to give you a book. Come on down. Come on.
Yep.
Scott said he's going to give you a book.
Any other questions?
Twice, it worked.
Yeah. Any other questions? Come on, you guys are thinking about clouds. There's got to be some question. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
We got the red light flashing up
All
here.
right, it's flashing.
We got the red light flashing.
Yep, back there.
Oh, here we go.
So how do you deal with companies that jumped on the cloud early on, like 5 years ago, and for whatever reason the OpEx, CapEx models has changed now, and they're trying to bring stuff back down on-prem? What do you say to the CFO? What do you say to the group saying, hey, it's out of control, bring it back down? How do you get to just say, no, it's good on the cloud? Like, how do you tackle that battle?
Yeah. So I would tell you that there are softwares available on the market. If we're talking about public cloud, there's softwares available on the market. To Scott's point about tools, do your homework first. Try to bring the cost in first. Bring it in line yourself, right? If you can't, there's companies that you can hire, like Scott's, that will come in and do that for you before you repatriate. Because again, talk about sticky conversations with the CFO, you have to then go back and say, hey, I need $1 million for some hardware, but let me show you why. Yeah, so try to avoid it if you can and figure out what it looks like first.
All right. So with that, our time is up.
I'm going to answer you, though. Go ahead.
And the last question was that gentleman. Here's your book, sir.
Yay!
So thank you very much for participating in the Cloud Power Panel. And anyone who want a book, come on up for some pictures and autographs. Thank you very much.
So a quick answer for you while they're shutting mics down. The repatriation, tell them to do it. Tell them to do it. Because when they go through the analytics and help them figure out how to do it, the reason for that is because repatriating is going to be far more expensive than staying and fixing the problem. The real problem is governance and orchestration and cost control, right? And change management.
That's the most fun we've had. That's the most fun we've had. So I encourage everyone who's watching, everyone who's here to stay. Oh, I've got more mics than hands now to stay, because at the top of the hour, we're going to have another power panel. I'm going to go on a limb and say it's going to be real fun. Maybe not as much fun, but it could be. Andy Mann's a real fun guy, too. And he's going to come in and talk about DevOps, which is a great bookend, so to speak, bookend to this session. So thanks, everyone. Please hang around. Top of the hour, we get going again. And Kevin and Joe and Scott, thank you so much. And everybody, this was great. Thank you.